That's right. Good evening. It's Monday, July the 15th at 7 o'clock, and I'd like to welcome you to the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Are there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Councillor Brody?
Yeah, I have two, number 5B2 and 7B.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, you've had the opportunity to read the minutes of the June 17th meeting. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt those minutes? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Kingma, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 5A. We'll now move into the Committee of Adjustments. And we have a recommendation that council convene as a Committee of Adjustment at 7:01 p.m. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, regarding the Committee of Adjustment, if you are in attendance to hear the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z062024 Ruby Farms, the applicant has requested that the application is deferred. If the application moves forward, residents will receive notice in this regard. The purpose of the following Committee of Adjustment and public meeting is to give council, the Committee of Adjustment, and the general public an opportunity to hear all interested parties with respect to the applications being heard this evening. The public is advised that comments expressed and written material presented are a matter of public record available for full disclosure. In respect to the Committee of Adjustment applications, only the applicant or a public body can appeal a Committee of Adjustment decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. This must be filed within 20 days from the date of decision. In respect to the public meeting applications, if a person or public body does not speak to the application at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the council decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal or be added as a party to an appeal of the decision to the tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision in writing, please submit a written request to the clerk, Mike Barnier. Okay. So Aaron, I'll turn this next section over to you regarding application for consent B062024 Tony Van Arts, agent Courtney Sinclair regarding 1179 Egremont Drive.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen here. My application up. Okay, so the first application before the Committee of Adjustment this evening is for B06-2024. The applicant is requesting to sever a parcel of land with a frontage of approximately 451 meters along Egremont Drive and an area of 58.2 hectares from an existing farm parcel that is approximately 98.4 hectares in size. The land severance has been proposed for succession planning purposes. So the subject property is located on the south side of Egremont or County Road 22, just east of Sexton Road, within the geographic township of Adelaide. The applicant is proposing a farm split severance whereby the property is proposed to be severed into two separate parcels. So as previously mentioned, the area of the lot to be severed is 58.2 hectares, and that would leave the remnant farm parcel or the lands to be retained at 40.2 hectares. The proposed lands to be severed contain a single detached dwelling, livestock barn, drive shed, and several silos. The lands are serviced with private well and septic system and have two accesses onto Egremont Drive. There is a small portion of the woodlot on the southern end of the property that's been identified as significant woodlands. And similarly with the lands to be retained, they contain significant woodland on the southern end as well. But they are currently vacant of buildings or structures and are primarily in agricultural production. So in support of the application, the applicant has also submitted an MDS2 report for the livestock facility on the lands to be severed. This demonstrates that the severance would comply with the required lot line setback, as well as demonstrating that there's buildable area on the lands to be retained outside of the MDS2 setback. The reason this is required is under the minimum distance separation guideline document provided by OMAFRA, and then they require this to ensure that the proposed severance does not sort of sterilize the retained lands from the ability to accommodate a dwelling in the future. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. The county engineer advised that the owner would be required to dedicate lands up to 15 meters from the center line of construction of County Road 22 across both the severed and retained land for the purposes of road widening if the right-of-way is not already to that width. The drainage superintendent advised the property appears to be part of the Verhoeven Drain, Campbell Drain, and Wilson Drain. And if approved, the applicant will be required to have a drainage reapportionment completed by the township's engineer, and the cost is to be borne by the applicant. Enbridge Gas also indicated that there are lines within this area, and if they are affected by the severance, it would be at the cost of the landowner to relocate the services. The county safety and standards officer provided the standard comments in regards to both parcels of land being issued 911 addresses. So likely the lands to be severed, but the dwelling would contain or maintain the 911 address of 1179 Egremont, and then the land's vacant farm parcel would then be issued a new 911 address. No comments or concerns have been received by the public in this application. I'm satisfied that the provincial policy statement, county official plan, and Metcalfe official plan, Adelaide Metcalfe official plan, permits lot creation in agricultural areas for our minimum farm parcel size, which is 40 hectares, which is being met in both the severed and the retained. As MDS is being met as well, my opinion is that the application, or sorry, my recommendation is rather that the application can be granted subject to the 9 conditions that I have outlined in my report, all of which are standard conditions, including number 5, which is the county road dedication requirement. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. We have also virtually is Courtney Sinclair from Learners. Did you wish to speak to this application, Courtney?
Good evening. I am here to answer questions, but I don't have any further comments or anything at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council, do you have any questions for Erin or for Courtney? No. Okay, seeing there are none, we have a recommendation before us that, and I won't read out those 9 conditions. So we have a recommendation to grant the request of the applicant. Moved by Councillor Brody, seconded by Councillor McKinnon, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a recommendation that the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 7:09 p.m. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is 5B. Public meeting is next. We have a recommendation that council convene in a public meeting at 7:09. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, second by Councillor Brody, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and as previously mentioned, the first application has been withdrawn at this time. We'll move into the second one, and it's a conflict for one councillor, so he'll leave the room. And I will turn it over to you, Erin, for the application Z082022. Nope, whoops, wrong one. Z072024 for Mike and Angela Brody regarding 1569 Murphy Drive.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. So the zone change application before council this evening is in regards to a previous consent application, which was conditionally approved at the February 20th, 2024 Committee of Adjustment meeting. The subject zone change application proposes to rezone the lands to be severed to the surplus dwelling SD zone, and to rezone the lands to be retained to the agriculture only zone, AEO zone, to satisfy one of the conditions of consent. The subject property is approximately 40.7 hectares in size and located on the south side of Murphy Drive, just west of Kerwood Road. Severed lands, being the residential lot, are approximately 0.61 hectares in size, contain an existing single detached dwelling, which is privately serviced, and a grain bin. The well is located approximately 110 meters south of the severed lot on the lands to be retained, which is being dealt with through an easement agreement, which is to be registered on title. However, it is not a part of this rezoning application this evening. So the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. I did not receive any comments or concerns from agencies, departments, or the public. I do believe that the requested rezoning is appropriate. The surplus dwelling zone, of course, for our residential lots that are created through the surplus dwelling severance process, and the agriculture only zone on the remnant farm parcel, which was to ensure that no future residential uses will be located on this property. So I am satisfied that the rezoning is appropriate, and my recommendation is approval. I have also drafted an implementing bylaw for council's consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, are there any questions for Erin on this application? It's pretty straightforward. Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z07-2024 be approved, and the reasons are listed there. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, second by Councillor Nordoff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Okay, next up is application for zoning bylaw amendment Z08-2024, a temporary use for Dieter and Nancy Teed. And they have an agent, Brandon Flewelling from GSP Group, and it's in reference to 623 Salisbury Street. And I'll turn this over to you, Erin.
Thank you again, Mayor Clark. Bringing my map up here. Okay. So the final rezoning application before council this evening, again, is for Z08-2024, the purpose and effect of which is to request a 3-year extension to the current temporary use provision, which permits 2 single detached dwellings on an agricultural lot, which is set to expire in July of this month. Well, this month, actually. The original temporary use bylaw was approved by council in July of 2022, the purpose of which was to allow the applicant time to construct a new dwelling on the subject lands while maintaining the existing home under construction, so that the applicant can, or the current tenant could remain in the house while the new house was being constructed. In addition to the temporary rezoning, the applicant also entered into an agreement with the township to ensure the removal of the original dwelling, as well as the security of $10,000. Construction of this new dwelling began in December of 2022. Occupancy was granted in September of 2023. According to the original temporary use agreement, the original dwelling was required to be demolished 90 days after occupancy was granted, which would have been approximately January of this year. At that time, the applicant requested an extension to the temporary use agreement to give the tenant of the original dwelling time to find alternative housing arrangements, as well as to await any potential changes to the draft provincial policy statement that might allow the dwelling to be severed or to remain on the property. Council did grant this agreement extension, and that is to match the wording of the temporary zoning, which states that the expiry date is July 18th of 2024, and that is 2 years after the original approval. As the bylaw and agreement are set to expire, the applicant has applied for a 3-year extension, which is the maximum length of time the Planning Act allows for temporary use bylaws. And further, the Planning Act provides applicants the ability to apply for extensions, subsequent extensions, which can only be approved in 3-year increments. And at the date of temporary use expiration, the lands would return to the underlying general agricultural zone. In support of the application, the applicants provided a planning brief prepared by GSP Group, and states the purpose of the extension is to allow the tenant to continue to reside in the original house and provide an additional housing opportunity within the township. The planning brief also states that the location of the subject property is unique and that is surrounded by the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc to the west, south, and east. And lands to the east and south have been rezoned for residential development and are working through the subdivision process currently. The planner advised that the proposed extension is permissible as 2 dwellings on the subject land will not be out of character for the surrounding area, and further states that agricultural operations would in fact be out of character due to the proximity to residential uses. I have provided council with relevant policy and regulations that would be potentially provide support for the application. However, I'm unable to find policies or anything that would allow me to support the application. While Section 39 of the Planning Act does allow the township to authorize the temporary use of lands, we do only allow these types of temporary use bylaws in the circumstances of an applicant wishing to build a new house, and in order to prevent undue hardship by having the landowner tear down the house, relocate off-site, bringing all their putting all of their possessions and whatnot into storage, constructing the new house, and then moving back onto the property. This type of temporary use is really intended to sort of temper that hardship. So while I do understand that alternative housing opportunities are supportable, in general, I don't find any policy support to allow an extension of this type of use. So my planning recommendation this evening is denial. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Council, any discussion? Betty Ann? Councillor McKinnon, sorry.
Through you, Mayor Clark, to, I guess, council. I'm in favor of giving the extension. We don't know how the OP will define the agriculture rural units yet. So I'm hopeful that by the time, if we give them an extension, we'll be aware of what the ARU, how we will address it in our official plan. Just my comment.
Accessory residential units you're referring to. Councillor Brody?
Through you, Sue, I'm kind of on the same page as Betty Ann here. It's just a unique area. It's probably going to be developed. It would be my gut feeling at some point. There's houses around it. I mean, taking one little house off a corner isn't going to put it back into agricultural use. Like, I mean, you're not going to gaining farmland out of it. So, and there might be, we don't have our official plan done just yet. A few things like that. So I would tend to agree that I wouldn't see a problem with giving an extension at this point either.
Okay, anybody else like to comment? Okay, the applicants, any comment? Okay, thank you. Okay, so that sounds like my sentiment exactly. That's if we had that enlarged, you would see that there is quite a bit of development, and then the new subdivisions going in across the road from there. So it is a unique area, and we may see policies change with the government. And to whoever mentioned it, we haven't done our OP yet, and we don't know what the definition of accessory residential units is, that what it's actually going to look like. So I would be in support of that as well. So, not to put words in your mouth, but, could we have a motion that the application for zoning bylaw amendment Z 082024 be approved for a period of 3 years? And further, that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw and a temporary use agreement to be presented at the August 12th, 2024 meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor Nordoff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, we have a recommendation that the public meeting be adjourned at 7:20 PM. Moved by Councillor Kingma, second by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, for correspondence, upcoming conferences, seminars, and meetings, the next council meeting for Adelaide Metcalfe is on August the 12th at 7 PM, followed by the meeting of council on September the 3rd at 7 PM. There's recommended readings, CC number 1, the Asabo Bayfield Conservation Authority Board of Directors Annual General Meeting Minutes of May 16th. CC number 2, Blue Water Recycling Association Board of Directors Meeting Highlights from June 20th, 24. CC number 3, Middlesex County Council Highlights from June 25th, 2024. And CC number 4, Middlesex London Health Unit Board of Health Meeting Summary from June 20th, 24. Under action required, 6C, we have a request to support a resolution, CC 5, from the Association of Municipalities, which is also referred to as AMO, and the Ontario Medical Association, or the OMA, regarding a joint health resolution campaign. Is there any interest in supporting that? Okay. Moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? And that's carried. CC number 6, a resolution from the City of St. Catharines regarding the Green Roads Pilot Project. Okay, it's a pilot project. CC number 7, a resolution from the municipality of Tweed regarding OPP funding. Councillor Kingma?
I would like to support this just out of sheer curiosity if it actually gets any traction.
Well, I think what's interesting is historically, the OPP was paid for by the province. It was not a municipal responsibility. And I think when you read that resolution, it talks about the pressures on infrastructure. Days like today, where we've had flooding and a lot of areas had, those are extra unplanned budgetary expenses that, we have to be able to handle. So I think you would make that a motion that we support that. Okay, moved by Councillor Kingma, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, CC number 8, a resolution from the Township of Larder Lake regarding the asset retirement obligation. Councillor Kingma?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clark. I wouldn't mind hearing from Johnny if he thinks that small municipalities should have more resources to figure out these ARO calculations.
Through the mayor, to Councillor Kingma. Yeah, small municipalities would be affected. I think the cost would also be relative, a significant cost, in addition to amending financial statements to reflect the asset retirement obligation calculations, is the cost to look at various facilities and condition assessments and whatnot. We are fortunate that we don't have many facilities, so we didn't have to spend a significant amount on that, or zero. Whereas other municipalities that may have arenas or different facilities would have to spend those funds for consultants or engineers to look at those facilities to determine what the potential impact is. So there is a potential for a significant cost.
She couldn't hear me. So we'll pass up on that one. CC number 9, a resolution from the Township of Otonabi, South Monaghan, regarding lithium-ion batteries. Okay. Could I have a motion to receive and file CC number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, and 9? Moved by Counselor Brody, second by Counselor Nordoff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, we'll get into our staff report, 7A, the tile loan rating bylaw, and the applicant Margaret Settler, and I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through to council. So this report's just highlighting the standardized process on the next stage of the approval of the rating bylaw of the tile loan for Margaret Sattler. So back on May 6th, council approved the tile loan application. So since then, an inspection was completed by our drainage inspector, and all documents have been forwarded to AMAFRA for review. So staff is recommending the approval of this bylaw and direction to sign and authorize the tile drain debenture and offer to sell documents to be submitted to AMAFRA. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions? This is the second time we've seen this file, so it's not a surprise. Okay, seeing none, we have a recommendation that the proposed tile drainage loan rating bylaw to lend $25,000 to Margaret Settler for a term of 10 years at 6% be approved, and further that the mayor and treasurer be authorized to sign the tile drain debenture and the offer to sell documents and submit them to AMAFRA. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor Nordoff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we'll excuse Counselor Brody. We have an application for a tile loan from Michael Brody, so we will turn that over to Johnny again.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through to council. Similar report, but this is just at the application phase. Tile loans that you have a 10-year term, interest is calculated annually at a rate of 6%. All loans are restricted to 75% of the total project cost with an annual maximum of $50,000. So staff has received an application from Mike Brody for a tile drain loan. That application is attached. The request is for $50,000. If approved, the drainage inspector will evaluate the tiling work by the licensed contractor and complete an inspection report while obtaining the drainage plan and final invoice. The treasurer will then relay the loan documentation and draft debenture to AMAFRA for processing and approval. And then staff will bring this back to council, as we've seen in the previous report, for approval of the actual debenture itself. From a financial perspective, there is minimal impact to the township. There is an administration fee of $200 applied to all tile loans to aid in cost recovery. The recommendation is to approve the report as presented, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Any questions for Johnny? Pretty straightforward. Seeing none, we have a recommendation of the application submitted by Michael Brody for a tile drain loan on concession 5, north part of lot 9, geographic township of Metcalfe, be approved in accordance with AMAFRA's policies for tile drainage for the current year, subject to approval and funding from AMAFRA. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Nordoff, seconded by Counselor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is item 7C, and notice of motion drain tile loan limit. So I'll turn this over to our clerk, Mike Barnier. It's an update on that notice of motion.
Through Mayor Clark to members of council, very straightforward report, just a follow-up from Councillor Kingma's question concerning the notice of motion issued on March 22nd. So there were a total of 19 municipalities that I have record of that I was CC'd on the support for our recommendation. 2 of them just acknowledged receipt, being the larger ones, the City of St. Catharines and City of Hamilton, who don't normally support resolutions in that regard. That we have not heard back from the province or the minister in this regard, so we'll follow up with a formal request just to see if it was received and if there is any action to be taken. I will note that it's not AMO and Roma do give policy updates of what they're working on. This has not hit their radar yet as well. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Okay, thanks for the update. That's kind of disappointing that there weren't more out of the 440 municipalities. We didn't get much uptick there. So they must not be farmers or have an appreciation for where we spend our money. Okay, we have a, whoops, what happened? It just left the screen. We have a motion to receive that the notice of motion drained tile loan report be received as information. Moved by Counselor McKinnon, seconded by Counselor Nordoff, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. My computer just went on the fritz there. Okay, next up, we have our treasurer again, Johnny Pereira, to talk about the capital budget to actual Q2 2024 report.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the council. So we have the Q2 capital report that outlines the township's capital projects for the year with spending to June 30th. This report outlines the status of our capital projects, project start dates, and updates on the project's progression. As with the previous report, we're still very early in the year for many of these projects. Staff does review their capital spending on a monthly basis, and a report is brought to council to outline any significant overages and a financial strategy to address it. So through the end of June, staff have completed 3 of the 13 projects. So one project that actually wasn't listed on that Q1 report was the infrared drone for the fire department. The township was successful in obtaining the community emergency preparedness grant, which fully funded this project. So the recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Johnny? I just have a comment. It's always nice to see our successful grant applications, and I really appreciate it. And I know that the taxpayers do as well. Okay, seeing no questions, we have a recommendation that the capital budget to actual report for Q2 be received for information. Moved by Counselor McKinnon, seconded by Counselor Nordoff, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up is the operating budget to actual up till June 2024. And once again, I'll turn this over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. Through to council. Pretty regular report, the operating budget actual. This is just for the month of June. So June does mark the halfway point of the year. Many of the township projects are ongoing. But overall spending and revenue collection to date looks to be on pace with the approved budget. When factoring in the outstanding reserve transfers that's noted in that report, that's done at year end, we're actually just under the 50% target, so which aligns with where we hope to be. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Johnny on the operating budget to actual? Seeing none, then we have a recommendation that the operating budget to actual report for June 2024 be received for information. Moved by Counselor Nordoff, seconded by Counselor Brody, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, and it's that time of year to start looking ahead to 2025, so I'll turn the next item 7F over to Johnny as well regarding the 2025 budget process.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through to council. So this report just outlines the 2025 budget creation process. And the budget serves as an outline for how the money that come into the township should be spent to maintain and improve the township. So over the past few years, the township has made a number of improvements to our budget, having streamlined many processes, efficiencies into the overall budget creation, which has resulted in a much earlier budget passing. Passing a budget by year end just positions the township to potentially realize cost savings, as the township would be able to tender out projects early in the year and before many other municipalities. Attached to the report there is a draft budget roadmap to highlight the overall process to develop the 2025 budget. So to kick off the 2025 Budget process, staff is once again recommending launching a budget survey in August to engage residents in the year's budget process. Staff would communicate this through the township social media platforms, the township website, and the final tax bill newsletter. Building off the success of the 2024 budget working group, staff is also recommending that council appoint 2 councillors to the 2025 budget working group. The budget working group consists of 2 councillors, the CAO, and all township managers. The appointed councillors to the budget working group will provide valuable insight to the budget creation process, engage in line-by-line discussions with staff, and an opportunity to provide valuable feedback on behalf of council. The working group serves as an additional tool to enhance education and transparency within the budget process. Mayor Clark and Councillor McKinnon both served on this working group in 2023 for the 2024 budget. In addition to the budget working group, consistent to prior years, councillors will still be encouraged to schedule one-on-one meetings with the treasurer to review the budget in detail when the budget package becomes available later in the year. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented, and I'll leave the second recommendation to the mayor to seek those councillors who are interested in joining the working group.
Okay, any questions for Johnny? Okay, seeing none, because we're a prepared council, we come to our meetings prepared. I've already canvassed the group, and as you mentioned, myself and Betty Ann participated last year, and then individually, the rest of you came in. So I'm pleased to say that Councillor Nordoff and Councillor Kingma have stepped forward to be the 2 participants for this year, and thank you very much. And I also, you mentioned about the budget survey. I really encourage all ratepayers to participate as well in that survey, because that gives us some indication of your thoughts as well. So if that is acceptable to everyone, we have a recommendation that the 2025 budget process report be received for information, and that Councillor Nordoff and Councillor Kingma be appointed to the budget working group for the 2024-25 budget and join municipal staff during budget discussions during October and November 2024. Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. And thanks again for stepping up. I think you'll find it a worthwhile process. Okay, next up is 7G, the municipal funding agreement for the Canada Community Building Fund, as we call that the gas tax money too. So anyway, at this time, I'll turn it over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor Clark, through the council. As you mentioned there, that fund, also known as CCBF, and as you mentioned, used to be called federal gas tax, has been a stable source of funding for the township and Ontario municipalities. And it is administered by AMO, which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. CCBF has provided the township with about $1.76 million to date. The funding agreement attached to the report covers a 10-year period. The older agreement has since expired. All municipalities are currently working through this process to enter into this new agreement. So the updated agreement must be signed before the township receives their 2024 allocation. The allocation that we're expecting in 2024 is about $94,666, with the remaining years listed in the report there. So the CCBF is a key component of the township's financing strategy to support the life cycle management of the township's infrastructure, as it provides predictable funding without the typical application process like other grants. The recommendation is that the bylaw be enacted to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the Canada Community Building Fund agreement with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario related to the funding by the Government of Canada. Further, that council delegate authority to the treasurer to sign any forms and reports required under the CCBF agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions for Johnny? Councillor Kingma?
Through the mayor to Johnny, how is it decided that the amount that it's indexed year over year? How is that number arrived at?
Through the mayor to Councilor Kima, great question. It looks to be that is a straight 2% year over year index applied to the fund at the federal level. And it's actually increases by increments of 100 million based on that 2%. At that point, it is allocated across the provinces and territories and then distributed to the municipalities on a per capita basis.
Yeah, and I think you'll find too, when you look, if you look at surrounding municipalities or or all of 440 of them in Ontario, there's a bunch of variables that go into that calculation. We're never happy because the number's been consistently going down. And I mean, they threw us a bone there. It goes up to what, 102 the year 3 or 4 or whatever. Anyway, and it's per capita. Like that is one of the driving metrics that they use. So, anyway, any questions? We asked that and there are none. Seeing none, we have a recommendation that a bylaw be enacted to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the Canada Community Building Fund, CCBF municipal funding agreement with the Association of Municipalities, AMO, related to the funding provided by the Government of Canada, and further that council delegate authority to the treasurer to sign any forms and reports required under the CCBF agreement. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Nordoff, seconded by Councillor Brody. All in favor? And that's carried. I'm happy to sign that as soon as possible. So all right, next item up is 7H 2023, the treasurer's statement regarding development charges, and I'll turn this over to Johnny Pereira again.
Thank you, Mayor Clerk. Through to council. So this report is just to comply with the annual reporting requirements under the Development Charges Act. 2023 was the first year of DCs at the township, with DCs coming to effect on January 1st, 2023. The township did collect 8 DCs, totaling 91,504 in the year. DCs are collected at the time of building permit issuance and are to offset growth-related projects as outlined in the DC background study for the township. In 2023, $42,611 was used from DCs for the Kerwood Park, the Kerwood sidewalk extension and the first phase of the Mullaferry Drive project. So with the $2,532 of interest we earned, the township ended the year with a balance of $51,425 in the DC account. The DC reserve schedule by service category is included in Appendix A with the township statement of compliance with the growth-related projects funded by DCs by service categories outlined in Appendix B. These are pretty standard items we have to report on under the Development Charge Act. So on November 28th, 2022, Bill 23 received royal assent, requiring the township's DCs to be phased in. So in 2023, our DCs were discounted by 20%. So the township lost about $22,875 due to this phase in. So that had to be shifted to the general tax base. So that was built into the 2024 budget. So just a note for 2024 now, Bill 185 received royal assent on June 6th. So the province backtracked and removed the phase in. So on June 6th, the phase in was promptly removed. So our DC charges are the full amount now to comply with the new legislation. So the recommendation is to receive the report as presented, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? They're not retroactive to January. They'd be from that date going forward, correct? Yeah. And the reason we instituted development charges is because we believe growth has to pay for growth. So that's where we are. Okay, seeing no comments or questions, do we have a recommendation of the 2023 development charges treasurer's statement be received and posted on the municipal website? Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Councillor Kingma. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, 7I is the next item on the agenda, and I'll turn this over to our treasurer, Johnny Pereira, and it's in reference to the failed tax sale.
Thank you, Mayor Clerk, to the council. So this vesting report is just related to a failed tax sale. Since this is the first time really this is coming to council in recent time anyway. The first part of this report just kind of outlines the tax registration process once taxes are in 2 years of arrears. If taxes still aren't paid, it also outlines the tax sale process. So when properties remain unsold after a tax sale, a municipality has a right to vest into the property. So you're taking ownership or offer the property again for a second tax sale. The township had 2 failed tax sales that resulted in 0 bids as outlined in the report. A map is also included to show how both of these properties are landlocked and a second sale is unlikely to yield any bidders. So vesting into these 2 properties would allow the township to assume temporary tax exempt ownership of these lands. Council would then have an opportunity to designate these lands as surplus, facilitating a future sale to an adjoining landowner. Staff has been in discussions with the adjoining landowner throughout this process due to these 2 unusual parcels. So the tax sale process is managed by a firm called Real Tax. There is no cost to the township for their services, as all costs are billed back to the property owner. The firm provided the township with a 2-week notice period to vest as the township was approaching the 2-year window. Having only 1 council meeting in June left really no time to convene at today's July 15th council meeting for a decision. So under the authorization of the CAO, the treasurer registered a notice of vesting prior to formal council approval. Based on the urgent need to address these properties to avoid further delays in resolving this issue. As communicated to council earlier this year on February 13th and 15th, registering the notice of vesting is consistent with the next steps outlined in the email in order to manage and address these 2 properties. This measure was taken with minimal risk, as the township has not accrued any tax payments on this property to date. The cost to the township to vest both of these properties was a total of $200. Taxes to be written off both these properties is $40,734.20. This is proportionally distributed to the County of Middlesex and school board, with the township's share covered in the 2024 budget. I do want to note it is important going through tax management to ensure that properties are registered in a timely manner to minimize the accumulation of outstanding taxes. It makes it easier to sell during a tax sale, and for vesting purposes, it's less of a write-off when it's done in a timely manner. If these lands are deemed surplus in the future sale could be used to recover all or a portion of these taxes we're writing off, and this will be outlined in a future report for council's consideration. Since each of these parcels have a cancellation price or the total amount outstanding of over $10,000, all proceeds from the future sale of these lands would have to be proportionally shared with the county and school boards, providing they are sold within 7 years. The recommendations are outlined in the report for council's consideration, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I look forward to the future staff report because we do have a policy in place for land disposition, so we'll hear more about that later. Unless somebody has a specific question now, I think we'll just move it to that. Okay, we have a recommendation that the township register on title a notice of vesting pursuant to subsection 3795B and 7.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, and that the municipal, county, and school board portion of taxes is written off in the amount of $40,734.20, and that council directs staff to dispose of the subject land following council's disposition bylaw. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor Nordoff, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, the next staff report up is 7J, the sports lighting tender results. And I'll turn this over to our Public Works Manager, Coulter Cahill.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. As everyone is aware, in 2023, the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe was successful through the Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grant Program. This grant was for the upgrading of Kerwood's Park's lighting system. The baseball field lighting tender was issued on June 17th and it closed on July 8th. We received 4 bids. This tender includes the lighting for the baseball diamond, playground, and walking path area to enhance the safety of anyone using these amenities. The successful bidder for the supply and installation of the new lighting at the Kerwood Park was Clark Hassan Electric, based on the lowest price. The new lighting configuration will be 4 pre-stressed concrete poles surrounding the baseball field with a 30-foot candle average for the infield and 20-foot candle average for the outfield. And this will allow the existing pole location in the outfield to be removed entirely while maintaining the proper lighting needed for the sports field. Based on the bids received, the total cost to replace the baseball diamond lighting and add lighting to the playground and walking path is $147,862 plus HST. This project is fully funded by the $150,000 OTF capital grant, leaving us with a surplus of $2,138. To fulfill the terms of our successful OTF grant, the township will need to install lighting for the pickleball and basketball courts. This addition ensures we honor our grant obligations by extending the usable hours of the park facilities. Including lighting for the pickleball and basketball courts was essential in securing the full $150,000 grant, allowing us to meet key deliverables within the grant application. As part of the tender process, staff did include provisions for follow-on contracts to ensure we obtain the best possible pricing for the ball diamond lighting. The lighting for the pickleball and basketball courts not included in this tender will cost an additional $16,750 before HST. This cost also covers an additional light standard with 2 fixtures that serves both courts and a 3rd fixture with a dusk till dawn sensor that illuminates the parking lot, thereby enhancing the safety and usability of the park. Staff is recommending that the expenditures over the $150,000 grant amount be funded by the remaining funds in the Marfa Mayor's Reserve Fund and cash in lieu of parkland. I have 3 recommendations below, but I will open up for any questions if there is any at this time. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions for Coulter? No? And this is a perfect example of that successful application because that's big money for us here in this municipality. So I appreciate the office doing the heavy lifting there. So if there's no questions, you do have that recommendation in front of you. That council approve the tender received from Clark Hassan Electric for the supply and installation of baseball field lighting at the Kerwood Park in the amount of $147,862 plus HST, and that council direct staff to enter into a follow-up contract with Clark Hassan Electric in the amount of $16,750 plus HST for the supply and installation of lighting for the pickleball court, basketball court, and parking lot. And further, that the project coverage overages, above the OTF grant amount be funded with the remaining Marfa Mayor's Reserve Fund and cash in lieu of parkland. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor Nordoff. All in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Okay, any other business? Number 8. Go ahead, Counselor Kingma.
Thank you. Sports Day and Barbecue, July 27. Bring the kids. There should be lots of fun activities for them. And chicken barbecue later on. I think tickets are available from Dwayne and Sarah Aris. And I think we've also posted that to social media. Correct? Yep.
Is that on our website or can it be put on there?
Social media and our website.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, because I think the deadline to purchase tickets is July 21st, like this Saturday, because they have to order the product, obviously. So it's a great dinner. I encourage everybody to come on out. Any other business? Okay. Seeing none, we have a recommendation that bylaw 37 of 2024, the tile drain loan for settlers, bylaw 38 of 2024, the agreement for the Canada Community Building Fund, bylaw 39 of 2024 regarding the zoning bylaw amendment for 1569 Murphy Drive, bylaw 40 of 2024, the agreement regarding the Kerwood Park lighting, and bylaw 41 of 2024 confirming July 15th, 2024 proceedings received first, second, and third and final readings. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor McKinnon, seconded by Counselor Kingma. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Seeing we have no other business, we have a recommendation that the meeting be adjourned at 7:55 PM. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Counselor Brody, seconded by Counselor Nordoff. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.